Hey, comic book friends. It's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien, here with another motley comic book haul, digging into some more of the stuff that I've been accumulating over these months where I've been mostly holed up at home. So a good bit of this is stuff I ordered online, and then there's stuff that I picked up at my comic book shop, which did open up when new comics started coming out again, and I think 3 people allowed in the shop at the most at a time with masks on. And so when I go in there's never many people around, usually just me and the owner of the shop, and I usually dig around for a few minutes, or 10 minutes or so before I get tired of wearing the mask and digging around in comics. But over the weeks, it's accumulated a lot of stuff, and as I mentioned, I have a lot of credit at the shop now, so I just kind of been grabbing more freely at back issues. But first, let's look at some trades. I'm keen. This is kind of going backwards. I think I may have showed this once upon a time because I've had this for a while, or I may or may not have shown Weird Fantasy Volume 3 it's from both Dark Horse and EC Comics in some fashion, because I think the copyright is still held by whoever owns EC Comics. I might be wrong, but so I've had this hardback for a while, and then it suddenly I like the old EC science fiction comics much more than I like the horror, maybe just because the horror illustrations look kind of ugly to me, and so I haven't dug into them. Maybe they're really great stories, but I love the sci-fi illustrations. Of course, there's great Wally Wood stuff in here, and some of you may remember that I am quite the fan of Wally Wood. I can never put my finger on quite why I like Wally Wood's art so much, but there it is. I do. It's got its own reality. I don't even know who this artist is. Oh, it's Joe Orlando, I think. Huh. I know him more as a famous editor at DC Comics. The Expert. Oh, that was a short one. Is this also Joe Orlando? Yep, looks like this is also The End. So Joe Orlando looks like he has a more what I would call cartoony style. Here's a Jack Kamen one. Father of the famous inventor who invented the Segway, but also the creator of one of the most famous EC comics of all, the one about the concentration camp survivor, and now I can't remember the name of it, taking place in the subway. Boy, that's another embarrassing thing, and I can't blame it on drinking beer because I'm drinking kombucha. Brewed by a doctor, I guess, so it must be healthy. Let's see, Al Williamson, Mad Journey. So I really dig this stuff, and I want the completist in me for hardbacks has started to really kick in. I think when I originally bought this, I was just glad that I happened to run across Volume 3. But as the completist is kicking in on getting on hardbacks, I looked on In-Stock Trades, I believe that's, and they only had Volume 2, so I don't have Volume 1. Unless I wonder if I have Volume 1 somewhere in the boxes of books I never did unpack since we moved into this smaller house. Let me open this up if I can. Sometimes it's hard to get started on this plastic. If I'm into editing, I could come and speed this part up, but I probably won't. So, this one is listed as gemstone rather than excuse me. It was listed as a gemstone book rather than Dark Horse, but I feel like Dark Horse was involved also. There's the nice end papers. and we got the same cover. I feel like a slave to these dust jackets because I've heard that this, without the dust jacket, an out-of-print book, a used book, loses a huge amount of value. So I feel like I have to save them, even though I don't like them. I would like to just keep it like this. Does it say anywhere here? Russ Cochran Publisher, Gemstone Publishing. You'd think the Gemstone is the older. Entire contents, copyright 2007 by William N. Gaines. William N. Gaines Agent Inc. Comics logo is a trademark of William N. Gaines Agent. So I'm a bit confused if I've somehow got an older edition from In Stock Trades. This says it has issues 7 through 12. This one says it has issues 13 through 18. So they're definitely... maybe Dark Horse picked up the series at some point when the Cockrum series ended. I'm kind of confused by that, actually. Anyway, let's take a look inside. This one has a foreword by Paul Levitz. I did not ever think of Paul Levitz as an expert on EC, but why not? He certainly proved to be a great historian of DC, where he worked, and he's probably got all the chops to be a comic book historian in general. We got Feldman art there, Al Feldstein. Sorry, was he also the? Who was it? No, it's Kurtzman who was also. Was it Gaines and Kurtzman who wrote most of these stories, or was it Gaines and Feldman? See, I haven't researched anything before talking here, and my memory, I probably once knew who did all the writing. I knew that someone working with Gaines did most of the script writing here. Oh, that looks like Kurtzman artwork there. I don't see a signature. Now, my understanding is that generally artists at EC received the page already lettered, and they had to draw the drawings in, but the lettering was already there and the panels were already there, which seems now like a really bizarre way to. There's art by Woody. It says the signature is Woody, but Wallace Wood. Perhaps the nice thing about Wallace Wood's art is it always pops out at you. I can't tell whose signature that is there. I almost thought it was Wally Wood, like rougher Wally Wood art. Anyway, I love these, and I have a lot of these in, I think it was by Gemstone, these comic book size ones that seemed like just a binding together of 4 issues of Weird Science, but I am much happier having the hardbacks, to tell the truth, on the nicer paper, on the larger size. If EC had a flaw for me, it's that they kind of packed so much in on every page that there's kind of it really helps to have the larger page, and maybe that's my failing eyesight. So anyway, I guess I got to hunt down Volume 1, and maybe there was a Volume 4. I don't know how many issues Weird Fantasy went to. This covers up to 18. Also online, I got 3 issues of the Comics Journal. I think I was poking around at mycomicstripshop.com, Lone Star Comics. And because I bought something else, and I was like, well, what else do I want to get while I'm here? And added into my order, because obviously that's better in terms of shipping. And they had these issues of Comics Journal at a very reasonable price. I can't remember what they are now. And maybe, I feel like I've always wanted, to go back to Comics Journal, but maybe the Kayfabe channel has some influence on that. I am amazed by the tiny print here. Whoa, the wind just whipped my little umbrella all around. I need that for shade. The wind's going a bit crazy here. So anyway, this is got a in-depth interview with between Gary Groth, the publisher, and Gil Kane. I know that they went on to become best of friends. I don't know if this is one of their first interviews together or the first. Maybe this is where they started their acquaintance or their friendship. There's lots of nice Gil Kane art here. It seems like it's focused on his Starhawks comic strip. There's a whole long article that I'm interested in digging into on Asterix. Their Paper Cuts has just released a new English translation into American English, supposedly, and apparently maybe more faithful to the original, like not adding in jokes the way the British translators did way back when. Anyway, the reason I've been reading them, though, is because they are available on Comixology, and so I've been reading them with my daughter. Asterix in the albums has proved too difficult to read side by side with her, with me reading out loud to her. So it's been our bedtime reading. Now that we have it on the iPad, we can do panel by panel, and it focuses our attention. We got Denny O'Neil doing something on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So, this will be interesting. Women's Lib by Mary. I don't know who Mary Jo Bethke is. That'll be interesting to read. I think part of the fun of reading this is if you're pretty immersed in comics history, you know what comes after what they're talking about in these issues, the reputation of things they're talking about, how it turned out in a sense, and also at the same time you discover hidden nuggets of aspects of what was going on then that you wouldn't think of just by reading a broader history. Kind of a lot of what I found when I was reading that, what was it called, Inside Comics. So I got that. That was issue 38 from February of what year? I don't know. Does it? February of 1977. And then I feel like I got a few comics journals when I was a kid visiting my grandmother at her apartment in Manhattan, where there was a comic book store near her. I don't know if I had this very issue, but I had one or two probably from 77 or 78. And then I took some time off from comics, and then I remember reading the comics journal quite a bit in the 80s. But so I grabbed this one because I thought the cover was fun and because there's a big Marv Wolfman interview in here. It'll also be interesting for the worst of comics, animation, and fandom. The Comics Journal did not shy away from being negative. If anything, maybe they preferred to be negative about anything mainstream. But so it'll be interesting to see. There's a bunch of reviews. Kat Yarnwood, who I think she became an editor later of Eclipse, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm confusing her with someone else. But I noticed here there's a review of the Silver Surfer graphic novel that Jack Kirby and Stan Lee did in the late 70s, and obviously already a negative review of this Roger Zelazny, illustrated Roger Zelazny, where they did comics of Roger Zelazny books, and a review of Saber, the Don McGregor, Paul Gulacy comic that came out from Eclipse, I believe. And it looks like they didn't like it, Saber's Dull Blade, but they're gonna go on about it for multiple pages here. I think journals like these weren't really typeset. I think what we're looking at is stuff typed on an IBM typewriter and then reduced in size so that each page has what would have been multiple pages of typewritten columns. I might be wrong about that, but I kind of recognize this printing as the kind from, what was it called, the IBM Selectric or some kind of special electric electric typewriter back then. Oh, here's the Fanny Awards, celebrating the best and worst of fandom. And one more of these comics journals. You can probably tell why I got this one with this nice Will Eisner cover. And it's a special Will Eisner issue. So Denny O'Neil reviewing the Contract with God. So maybe this is right around the time Contract with God came out. It's still 1977. Wait, no, that's not right. You know what? I bet 1977 that I'm seeing on the label there is when it first started coming out. So I'm guessing this is later. 1979. So now I know from hearing Gary Groff and from the introduction of his Gil Kane book that he and Gil Kane did not like Will Eisner, and they thought that his graphic novels were crap. Although I did hear Gary Groth say that Will Eisner's better work was on the Spirit, so at least he didn't think all of Eisner's work was totally crap, although saying it's better doesn't necessarily show whether or not he liked it. Whether he felt that way back then, unfortunately this does not have much Will Eisner art. Maybe that's to do with the fact they didn't get along, so instead it's got other fan artists. There's a nice Hembeck one, drawing scenes from Will Eisner's work. Yeah, there's another fan drawing of the Spirit. Not at all like what Will Eisner had done. There's little bits of Will Eisner illustration, but not a lot. So I don't know what to make of that, really. Anyway, I look forward to reading these. Although I may get eye strain. Maybe I need my dad in his later years had a special magnifier he used to read books. Maybe I'm going to get to that point with these things. Was my eyesight so great then, or did I have to put my face close to the page to read these things back then, and that's why I need glasses so badly now. Oh. Okay. Well, maybe you can tell me more after I'm done recording.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were.
It's okay. It's part of real life in my recordings. So speaking of Inside Comics, they weren't too expensive, so at the same time I think I grabbed the remaining Inside Comics issues. I don't know if they're all that were printed, but maybe all that I was interested in or something, or maybe it was all. I can't remember now. Anyway, I got issue 2 because you've already seen that I have issue 1. I'm going slow. I might as well open this up too. This has more doable print size. I think this is real typesetting and not. And here there's a long interview with Kurtzman, Harvey Kurtzman, so that should be interesting to see what he had to say back then. Oh, there's a Annie Fanny strip. It's almost scary to think of. Here's the really tiny print, but it still looks typeset, not typewriter, poorly photographed, like in the journal. I don't think the Comics Journal was going. I guess it started in 1977, and this is 74. So I feel like this might have been an inspiration for the Comics Journal, or not. But a article by Steve Ditko, who owns original art. I wonder what his answer on that will be. Ditko's a wild card. I can predict what Neil Adams will say. I can't predict what Steve Ditko will say. Working for Mickey Mouse. I bet they have some negative things to say about that. Just knowing them. It seemed like, in particular, this magazine liked to attack Roy Thomas. Why exactly, I don't know. So then I've also got volume number 3. This must have been quarterly. It's fall 1974. I don't immediately recognize that illustration. The previous illustration is signed by C.C. Beck, and I kind of recognize that style. I think, you know what? I recognize this picture so much suddenly. I think I had this issue when I was a kid. Must have bought it at that comic book shop near my grandmother's also. Marvel's Kung Fu Color Line, History of the American Adventure Strip. Well, that definitely applies to some things I'm looking into now. As if I weren't looking into enough, I'm also spending some time with Prince Valiant and with Terry and the Pirates. The Dirty Dozen, 12 Pros Gripe About Comics. How to Rate Comic Books by C.C. Beck. C.C. Beck was quite involved here. Let's see. J.R. Crocklin, The Doonesbury Scandal. Did Doonesbury do something bad? Or is it actually a good kind of scandal? Look at the way Gary Trudeau dresses. Just seems funny to me now. Here we have the Alex Raymond art and Terry and the Pirates and things like that. So that's very cool. And finally, Inside Comics number 4 with another C.C. Beck cover. It's a little warped looking in terms of the clean style that C.C. Beck had. The faces look a little crazy. Will Eisner on Comics in the Library. Super Lawsuit, The Comics Code Part 2. May we have the next slide, please, by C.C. Beck. How the great Golden Age heroes might have appeared if drawn by today's comic standards. So maybe that's C.C. Beck's take on the way comics were drawn in 1974. It looks a little bit like the way the leg is done and stuff. It looks like he's trying to draw a bit like Steranko, who would have been pretty much gone from comics in 1974. But, except for the occasional cover. Looks like he's making fun of the way Conan was drawn. Or maybe not making fun of it, but... Okay, so he's saying the Peanuts example is True Comics, and this Barry Smith Conan, both of which he's redrawn, I guess, for copyright reasons, is not the way comics should be done. He says it's action-packed, but each panel is a separate bit of eye-catching art. That's funny because I love the continuity of Barry Smith at that time. But what do I know? C.C. Beck knows a lot more than I do. The Comics Code, 20 Years of Self-Strangulation, Part 2. So maybe that continues from something that I didn't notice in my first issue there. Here's a picture of Will Eisner for some reason. Since 1938, Will Eisner has been in the vanguard of educational applications of the comic book format. I think it's an article by... So that's kind of about the author in the article by Will Eisner, Comics in the Library, which I don't remember Comics in the Library in 1974. I guess it's about his ideas on educational comics, that they would only want educational comics in the library. We've come a long way. We've got every kind of uneducational comic in the library now, in the collected form. Oh, it looks like more making fun of Roy Thomas, the Cracker Jack editor, as they're calling him. This is a comic I also got from In Stock Trades that I saw briefly on a video by Kayfabe, and I couldn't resist looking for it and seeing whether it was affordable, and it was. And it's basically Strange #1. It's more of what I think of that ground level comics by very professional comic book illustrators and storytellers, but without the Comics Code authority, doing whatever they want. We've got some Frank Thorne, there's some Alex Toth in here, there's some Wally Wood. And I don't know if the cover, I'm quite positive, is a reprint from another source by Will Eisner. Is this the Alex Toth? I'm not sure. But I don't know if the other stuff in here, this is by someone named Vincente Alcazar. That name is just faintly familiar. I must have seen a little bit of his work in the 70s when I was a kid. Oh, that must be the Toth. The Alex Toth. So it's too bad this was an experiment that didn't last beyond one issue. It came out in, where's the copyright date? November 1982. So by this point you've got Epic Comics and of course Heavy Metal going. So maybe this didn't stand that much of a chance with those two big magazines already doing pretty adult material by top level artists. Okay, well, as always, I spent a lot of time on things, so I'm going to do a different video where I start going through the regular size comics and such. I'll catch you again soon.